All right, Casey, so I always like to ask people this. It's kind of an open-ended question, so whatever really jumps out to you is the right answer here. But what were you like growing up, and what stands out to you about your childhood?
I think I was probably a shy kid, looking back and, at a younger age. And we lived out in the country, so I didn't grow up like in a neighborhood. So I kind of grew up on a farm, and so you're kind of isolated out there. So I think that tends to lead you down that road where you're a little more reserved and quiet, a little more country, I guess.
What drew you to music, and when did you begin to connect with music? Not even necessarily playing music, but just as something maybe you really enjoyed as a hobby or listening to music, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think everyone can look back in music, and there's at some point in your life where music goes from being background noise, from you in the back seat of your parents' car. It's just something you're listening to having meanings. And I think probably for most people that moment sets in somewhere about the time you start your dating life, and you get your heart broke or that direction. The songs start to mean a little more. You start to understand some of that pain. And so, definitely getting your heart broke is what led me towards, trying to find that deep meaning in songs and listening and changing. And you feel that relation to people that write those songs.
All right, so I stink at anything that involves the arts. I guess maybe if writing is a part of the arts, I'm okay at that. But, I can't sing, I can't dance, I can't draw, paint, any of that. I'm horrible at playing instruments. My choir teacher told me that she would pass me in 6th grade as long as I promised not to sing during the concert. But I do remember that I think, the recorder, well, maybe the glockenspiel or whatever those things are when you're in 1st grade and you just, hit a deal. But what was the first instrument you played, or when was the first time you did something musically that you remember?
I started writing songs in high school. I guess they were songs. In my mind, they were songs, but I didn't play guitar. I tried to play a little bit. My grandpa played guitar, and he really loved it. And so, I tried to get into it. We didn't have any money for guitar lessons or any of that stuff, or maybe even to have a guitar. I don't even know. But I didn't get into it. And then when I got to college, my roommate had just came back from the military, so he was a little older, and he had a couple of guitars and played, and it really sparked the fire again to learn. So I went home. My grandpa gave me an old beater guitar, and I just started teaching myself how to play. And then, you get a little better, and I started putting some music to it. So really probably 18, 19, freshman year of college is when I actually started where I could play and sing a song, and starting to put some music and ideas to these songs that I've been writing.
So this wasn't something where people who listen to your stuff now or are aware of what you're doing are going to come up with stories like, man, I remember, when Casey was 5, he was such a star. This was more of something that developed later in your adolescence, I guess, for you.
100%. And something that was a complete hobby, just a couple of years in, and just even when we started playing in some bars, it wasn't. I just never thought that this would be what I did for a living. Everyone dreams of something awesome, but I just didn't. It's so hard and tough to make it that it's just one of those things. I did it because I liked it, and man, just looking back now, almost 20 years in, it's amazing.
All right, so I guess when you were growing up, if it wasn't like you were determined to be a music star and what you're doing now, what is it that you wanted to do, or what were the things that you really kind of were drawn to from a hobby standpoint, but maybe something that you thought I can do this when I'm older, this is what I want to be when I grow up, type of thing?
Right. I got into team roping a little bit right there towards the end of high school and same time frame, and so wanted to rodeo, just probably wasn't good enough and didn't start early enough to really be on that level. But it's something I still loved and enjoyed. And I taught school for a year after college, and it didn't take very long to figure out that was definitely not my path. God bless all the teachers out there. I'm not kidding, man. I don't know how they do it, but thank God some of them want to do it. And then I started working in like commercial sales for like a construction company. Did a lot of fencing, and then kind of got into a position where I bought that company. And then, or the guy that ran it, like worked me out a deal where I could buy it through him. He had somebody kind of do that for him, and so helped me get going on my own, and started that. And I did that till 2008. So 6 years into the band, I was still running that business. So I think my move would have been somewhere in construction, somewhere in real estate. Was kind of where my passions lied.
Now, you're a big sports fan, and that's how we met, and that's how our friendship formed, was your love for sports, particularly the DFW sports scene, and obviously my involvement in it. Were you an athlete growing up? Were you a sports fan growing up? How did you develop an interest in sports?
Like everybody else, I played a little soccer, a little baseball up until high school, and then high school I played golf. My dad got into playing golf really late in life. Now, my grandpa was a great golfer, still has a course record. Fort Worth shot a 59 once.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's with wooden drivers. So he was a serious player. People said he could have played on the tour, but back then it didn't pay a whole lot of money to go play on the tour in the 60s. So he just stayed home. But a great local player. My dad got into it. He didn't start playing until in his 40s. And then he was a scratch golfer in a couple of years, which is still, I can't figure out how he did that, because I've been playing my whole life and can't figure out how to be a scratch golfer. But I played high school golf, first team all district there in Burleson, and I was pretty good. And that was kind of my sport. But I love the competition, and I do love our local sports teams for sure.
All right. Now, you mentioned that you were working when the band formed for several years. When did the Casey Donahew band form, and how did it come about?
So 2002 was our first year that we started playing shows. And just local. It started at an acoustic concert of another guy, local Fort Worth guy. At the end of his night, he let me get up and I'd sing a song to, 50 or 60 people, whoever was there, and the bar owner asked me if I wanted to come do a Wednesday night acoustic on my own, which, looking back, they were probably horrific. I don't even know if I knew 10 songs at that point. So we started doing Wednesdays, and I did every Wednesday there for a while and started building it up. My wife, who was my girlfriend then, kind of took the reins of the management, which she still does today. So it's we've really built this thing together from scratch. And once you kind of get into the scene and playing some bars, and you kind of meet other musicians, put together bands, start doing band shows, and then then it's the fight of trying to get a song on the radio, trying to reach fans, trying to play more venues. And, back then it was just so different. There wasn't the social media there is now to really connect to people. So it was all, you're beating the phone books up, trying to just call bars and venues and get a show and let somebody play, let somebody play somewhere. And so a couple of years in, we were real lucky. The ranch started having these competitions, like a nightly countdown where it was like a battle between two songs. And Stockyards got added to the battle and ended up winning for several weeks. I don't know what it was. And so then they just started playing in rotation. And it was one of those things that just really took hold and really launched this thing forward.
So that's interesting. And I guess I take that for granted that now you can tweet, whatever it is that you're doing, and you have a platform and an audience that can, help you share whatever it is you're trying to get out. But that wasn't the case when you were starting. So you mentioned phone books. Like, what was the strategy there? I mean, did you guys all split up? Like, hey, you've got A through C and you've got D through F, or like, what was the method to the madness of really trying to get the word out?
Well, it's probably a pretty big secret that I'm really, really lazy. So that's probably a Melinda question, because I feel like she's done everything that was really hard, and I just kind of wrote songs and rode her coattails the whole way. But it was just, everything local. I mean, she's calling. Back then, we would play like at Jay Gilligan's over in Arlington by the ballpark. He'd let us come in and play the little back room. Had a little tiny stage, and we'd play little places in Fort Worth. And then once the stockyards started getting played, there was kind of a buzz, and it was right when MySpace started. So I give a lot of credit to MySpace for really helping us launch our career. It was the first social media platform. It was free. You posted your music for free. You connected with fans. And so we went from stockyards in the DFW area, pretty big, there's a really big area here. Well, we're playing these bars around here, and all of a sudden all these high school kids are going off to college. So next thing you know, we have this little following in Wichita Falls, in College Station, in Lubbock. And really it was kids from here going there, and then that was a big area, a big point in time when the Burn CD was a real big player. That was Napster's out there ripping off music. And so all these kids are burning CDs, and kind of we really found a niche in that rodeo community. And it's been a thing in the rodeo community. You can go back to the days of Chris Ledoux, where all these kids would trade records, trade tapes, 8-tracks. I don't know how far back it goes, but hey, man, you listen to this, and I'll see you at the next rodeo, and we'll trade something else. And so we really found this little niche in this rodeo community, and it really helped spread us to the rest of the country, the state, through the underground channels.
That's really interesting. So, would you say that the CD burning era? I know that it took perhaps money off the table for some artists, but do you think that ultimately it helped, or do you think it was more negative for people like yourself?
No, it 100% was positive for me. People weren't going to go buy a Casey Donahew record. First of all, you couldn't buy it. Where would you go buy it? That was the thing. We weren't carried in Walmart and Target and, a few mom and pop places. As we got further along and bigger in our career, we sold enough tickets that we garnered enough attention that people would pay attention and even care to sell your record. So back then, if they didn't burn it or get it out, I can't remember how exactly MySpace worked, but you could go and listen. I could put maybe it was 4 or 5 songs, and you could listen to them as much as you wanted on MySpace. And so I don't know if that was a way that was burned or not, but it really helped us. Now, maybe it hurt Metallica, but they got plenty of money. So.
Yeah. I want to get back into the band, but before I do, I'm curious who your influences were back then, and maybe as you started to get going, did you have mentors in the industry who really helped you then, and maybe even now? Who are some of those really important figures for you?
The thing that kind of really led me down this path is Pat Green. I mean, what he did, he was one of those first guys that I really got into. Him, from Pat, kind of really got into Robert Earl Keen, Pat Green. But Pat Green really changed this whole scene. I mean, he turned an independent artist into, he took it to the next level that I've never seen anyone do it before. Maybe you go back to Dave Matthews or something like that in a different genre, but similar type thing where a guy's making crazy money. He's selling out arenas, and he doesn't have a record deal. Doesn't have a song on the radio. Doesn't have a top 10. And that was just so amazing to me. And I'd go watch him and he'd tell these stories and he'd interact, and just felt like he was talking to me. He's such a great stage presence. And, from Pat kind of led into, when Ragweed was really rocking right there, early 2000s. I mean, they were rock stars. And Randy Rogers. And so but when we started, we didn't know anybody else. It was a Fort Worth scene. A bunch of those guys lived in Austin, New Braunfels. They all had these booking agents. We didn't have a booking agent. We had Melinda calling everybody on the phone. So I didn't have any friends that could really help further my career about, hey, why don't you come open 20 shows in a row for me in front of all these sold out crowds. So we didn't know anybody, and we just did it ourselves. It was just underground. We would play random places. We would rent places and put on our own shows. we just did it the hard way. But it worked for us. And now, Pat's a really good friend. He doesn't live very far from me. Our kids go to school together, talk to him all the time. Randy Rogers, Wade Bowen, we, these friendships that are built over decades, guys that, with or without music will still be friends. Kevin Fowler's one of my really close friends, and Josh Abbott. And so I've kind of built this little network through years and decades, and now it's all really smooth sailing.
Okay, so, one of the things when you look up Casey Donahew, it says Texas country. Is that a limitation, or is that a genre? Like, is that something you embrace, or would you rather just be considered a country musician, which you are, but would you rather shed the Texas country label, or is that something that you embrace as a part of your identity?
No, I think I'm okay with it. People ask, there's always this debate, red dirt, Texas country, Texas music, Nashville country, mainstream country. I kind of just tell people that I make Casey Donahew music, and whatever genre you think that falls into, I guess you can sort your music player however you want. But I've always had the exact same formula, the same. I go about writing songs very similar. Just hopefully, anything you do for 2 decades, you get better at as you go, and so. That's one of those things where I just, I don't think too much about it. People ask me to do it. I said, I'm from Texas and I make music. So if you want to call it Texas music, there you go.
All right. So, I said I wanted to get back into the band, and, I'm involved daily in sports conversations, and the idea of a team is super important, and you are a part of a team. So I guess I'm curious, how does being a part of a team on the music side work? And your team, just like a sports team, has the athletes and then the coaches and the front office and whatnot. I mean, you have the musicians and you have people like you mentioned, Melinda, and people who aren't necessarily playing the music. But let's start with just the musicians. How do you? What's important in being a part of a music team?
It's one of those things that chemistry, you hear you guys talk about it on the radio, and I'm sure the average person at home is like, who cares? What does it matter? Let's find the best 5 players, or the best, let's find the best. He's the best wide receiver in football, so it doesn't matter if he's a cancer in the locker room. And I'm telling you, it does. There is nothing more important than chemistry. I'll take less talent every day over the right person. And, you got to be able to get along with people. You spend so much time with them, whether it be in a bus or a locker room or an airplane, if you're flying from a sporting event to sporting event. It's so important to get along with the people you're in that small room with. It changes everything. And you go through those situations, and I'm sure the same in sports, where you don't realize it, and then all of a sudden that person's gone, and it's like a breath of fresh air hit the whole room. Everybody in the room, spirits lifted, and they're like, golly, that guy was dragging us all down.
Is there ever, I don't know, like, if there's ever a power struggle, but the band is the Casey Donahew Band, and obviously, knowing you're not someone who is not going to recognize, as you just kind of did with that answer, you're not going to recognize the work of others, but has there ever been a conflict or an issue because it's the Casey Donahew Band and other people a part of your band feel slighted? Or I don't know. I'm sure it's not an issue, but I know that for some people, the ego can get in the way at times. Has that ever come up or been an issue?
I think that's always an underlying an issue where people, and I'm sure it's the same way with the guy who looks across the room at the $35 million quarterback and thinks, why is this guy getting paid 4 times what I'm getting paid? And it's just part of it. Quarterbacks get paid, and it's I don't know if it's ever been an overwhelming issue, but I think there's definitely some of that. I hear about it with other bands and other groups, and everyone runs their organization a little different. This one is mine and Melinda's, and we built it from the ground up, and we have decades invested. just in branding, and so it's really important. That name's really important to us, and it means more to us.
All right, a lot of times when we talk, you're in this city or this state or that state, and I've seen you with your kids, and I know you bring them to sporting events and spend as much time with them as you can, but there is a portion of your life that is lived away from them on the road. How do you balance being a dad and a husband while also maintaining the focus and energy that you need for your job, and I guess making sure that you're giving as much as you can to both elements?
It's very tough. You're talking about the one thing that's the hardest thing to do, especially for where I'm at in my career and where I'm at in my kids' ages. Just making sure. I wrote it in one of my records, a couple of records ago, and I thanked my kids for the unknowing sacrifice that they make, because they don't know another life. This is the only life they've ever known. His dad's gone on the weekends, almost every weekend, and then we're home. So my goal is to always, when I'm home, I want to be home. So I involve my kids with everything I do. Like you said, you'll see me at sporting events on Mondays and Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and I got both kids toting around, and got to make time for your wife, and it's a struggle for sure. It's really important. I try to help coach my kids' teams when I can and when I can be there, and sometimes I'm flying back and forth. I've flown 2 or 3 times in a day just to try to catch my 10-year-old, pitch a baseball game. So it's one of those things. I try to make sure I don't forget them.
Now, you mentioned earlier that heartbreak really influenced you early on in songwriting, and then just a second ago, you mentioned writing a song kind of dedicated to your kids. You bring, and a lot of songwriters do, you bring your life into your music. Has that ever been an issue? Has there ever been like, shoot, do I want to publicize this, even though you're not necessarily coming out and saying X, Y, and Z happened? Your fans and listeners can kind of tell, well, if he's singing about it, then maybe that's an experience that happened to him. Has there ever been, I guess, a gray area or a blurred line where you're like, I don't know if I really want to turn this into a song, this part of my life? Or is it just kind of a part of the way you go about things where, hey, if it happens in my life, the best way for me to deal with it is to turn it into a song and to turn it into something that people can enjoy?
There's a couple of sides of that. Usually I don't try to hold anything back, and I'll throw it out there. And there's been a few times when I've discussed it, but I think one of my specialties is, for some reason, just I think one of the things I'm good at is really writing this heartbreak song. Although I've been in a pretty strong relationship for 20 years, so it's always one of the things I just write these gut-wrenching, like I have the most horrible breakup you could ever imagine all the time. And so my wife just stares at me like, got any love songs in there at all? And I'm like, I'm not good at that. That's not what I'm good at. I just have this knack for telling the story about getting your heart ripped out of your chest. And so that's one of the ones that she'll give me the sideways look every once in a while. And then a couple of records ago, my wife grew up in a pretty tough she grew up really tough with domestic abuse and stuff like that. And so I wrote a song kind of about her life. And so it was one of those things that I want to put that out there. And so I kind of talked to her about it, and she wanted to, and she was okay with talking about it. And so a song called Put the Bottle Down that I wrote maybe 3 records ago. But that was one of those situations where it's kind of like, do we go with this, or is this something for us? And she wanted to put it out.
All right. Last thing I want to ask you, is there anything left that you'd like to accomplish? Are you happy with where you are? Do you still, you're a dad and a husband, and I know that when that comes into play, maybe that changes someone's ambitions or, what's important to them. What do you still want to accomplish? What's next for you? And what are those challenges that you're still really fighting on a daily basis from a professional standpoint?
Yeah, I'm always just going to follow the road in front of me, for sure. I this path that we're on has been successful. I've always thought, if this all ended tomorrow, I could look back and say, man, that was pretty amazing. What a run. That was a pretty good couple of decades. I still think we got some great music in front of us, and it seems like every year still gets bigger and bigger. And so, I'm going to keep pedaling down the road. The dreams of selling out AT&T Stadium are, probably faded for where I am and what I want to do. But, I think we got a lot of years of good music still ahead of us. So we're just going to keep making music, and hopefully the fans keep showing up. And if we kind of stay right here on this roller coaster we're on, I think it'll be all right.